The afternoon sun streamed through the glass ceiling of Pine Ridge Mall, casting long shadows across the polished floors. Officer Ray Chen rubbed his tired eyes as he made his final rounds. After pulling a double shift, all he wanted was to clock out and head home to his waiting TV dinner. The mall was busy for a Thursday, families shopping, teenagers hanging out by the food court, and workers hurrying to finish their errands during lunch breaks. Chen's radio crackled to life. "We have a possible shoplifting situation in Tech World. Second floor, East Wing," the mall security guard reported. "Woman in a navy jacket acting suspicious around the premium electronics. Copy that." "On my way," Chen replied, straightening his uniform and adjusting his belt as he headed for the escalator. Chen had been working this beat for 12 years. Pine Ridge wasn't known for serious crime, mostly just bored teenagers stealing makeup or the occasional drunk causing a scene. The neighborhood surrounding the mall was upper middle class, predominantly white, and Chen had grown comfortable with the routine nature of his job. As he approached Tech World, he scanned the store until he spotted her, a black woman in a fitted navy jacket examining a display of high-end headphones. She was athletic-looking with short, neatly trimmed hair, wearing simple jeans and white sneakers. Something about her didn't fit Chen's mental image of the usual Pine Ridge shopper, and he felt that familiar gut feeling that had guided him through countless arrests. The woman picked up a box of premium wireless headphones, turning it over, in her hands, reading the specifications with intense concentration. Chen watched as she placed it in her shopping bag without heading to the checkout counter. That was enough for him. He didn't bother checking with the store manager or looking at security footage. His instincts told him everything he needed to know. Chen approached her with a practiced stride. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice carrying through the quiet store. The woman turned, her expression calm but questioning. "Yes, officer." "Mind if I ask what you're doing here today?" Chen asked, positioning himself to block her path to the exit. "Just shopping for some equipment," she replied evenly, reaching into her bag. "I can show you my—" "Please keep your hands where I can see them." Chen cut her off sharply, his hand moving to rest on his belt. "Remove your hand from the bag slowly." The woman froze, then carefully withdrew her hand. "Officer, I think there's a misunderstanding. I have receipts for everything in my—" "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to place your hands behind your back." Chen interrupted again, louder this time. His voice echoed through the store, causing other shoppers to turn and stare. "This isn't necessary," she stated firmly, her voice level despite the situation. "If you'll just let me explain—" "Now, ma'am." Chen stepped forward, reaching for his handcuffs. "You can explain down at the station." By now, a small crowd had gathered. A teenager held up a phone recording the encounter. An elderly couple whispered to each other. A store employee stood frozen behind the counter, looking uncertain about whether to intervene. "Officer, you're making a mistake," the woman said, still maintaining her composure as Chen roughly grabbed her wrist. "You have the right to remain silent," Chen began reciting, loud enough for everyone to hear, making a show of it. He'd done this hundreds of times. The familiar words rolled off his tongue without thought as he secured the handcuffs around her wrists. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The woman didn't resist, but her eyes flashed with something that made Chen hesitate for just a moment. Not fear or anger, but a calm confidence that seemed out of place. She stood straight, shoulders back, showing none of the usual embarrassment or panic he typically saw during public arrests. "Officer, I strongly suggest you contact your supervisor before taking this any further," she said quietly, for his ears only. Chen scoffed. "Nice try, let's go." He gripped her upper arm and began steering her toward the exit. As they walked through the store, the whispers grew louder. More phones appeared, recording the scene. The woman walked with unexpected dignity, head held high, despite the handcuffs. "You think I'm shoplifting?" she asked, her voice still calm. "The headphones in your bag, ma'am. Premium model, worth over $300. "Which I paid for," she replied. "The receipt is in my wallet." Chen ignored her. Shoplifters always had excuses, and he'd heard them all. Besides, he'd caught her red-handed putting merchandise in her bag. open and shut case as far as he was concerned. As they reached the mall's main corridor, the crowd following them had grown. Chen felt a twinge of satisfaction. A good arrest at the end of a long shift. Something to brighten his day and remind everyone that crime didn't pay at Pine Ridge Mall. "Officer Chen to dispatch," he said into his radio. "I have a shoplifter in custody, heading to the security office now." What Officer Chen didn't realize as he marched the woman through the bustling mall was that his simple shoplifting arrest was about to become the biggest mistake of his career, one that would change not just his life, but the policies of the entire police department. The crowd parted as Officer Chen led the handcuffed woman through the main hallway of Pine Ridge Mall. Weekend shoppers stopped to stare, some whispering behind their hands while others boldly recorded with their phones. The woman's face remained neutral, but her eyes scanned her surroundings with unusual awareness, noting exits and security cameras as if by habit. "You're hurting my wrist," she said quietly, as Chen gripped her arm tightly, steering her toward the mall's security office. "Maybe you should have thought about that before stealing," Chen replied, not loosening his hold. "I didn't steal anything," she stated firmly. "Everything in my bag was paid for." Chen rolled his eyes. In his experience, they all claimed innocence, especially when caught red-handed. "Save it for the station," he muttered. A young mother pulled her curious child away as they passed. An older man in a business suit shook his head in disapproval, though Chen couldn't tell if the disapproval was aimed at him or the woman he was escorting. "Officer," the woman tried again, her voice low but commanding. "I strongly suggest you radio your supervisor, right now." Something in her tone made Chen hesitate for just a second. Most shoplifters he'd arrested were either tearfully apologetic or loudly indignant. This woman was neither. She carried herself with unusual poise, her back straight despite the uncomfortable position of her cuffed hands. "Nice try," Chen said, recovering his confidence. "Let's just get to the security office and sort this out." By now, at least 6 people were following them at a distance, phones raised. Chen felt a flash of irritation. These days, everyone wanted their viral moment. Officer Chen, a mall security guard, called, hurrying to catch up. "I just got word from Tech World. They're saying that she was seen putting merchandise in her bag without paying," Chen finished for him. "I know. I caught her myself." The security guard frowned. "Actually, sir, they're saying there might be some confusion. The store manager wants to talk to you." Chen waved him off. "We'll clear everything up at the security office. I need to process her first." The woman sighed audibly. "You're about to have a very bad day, Officer Chen," she said, not as a threat but as a simple statement of fact. As they approached the security office, Chen noticed something odd. A black SUV with government plates was parked in the fire lane. Outside the mall entrance, and a uniformed police officer, not mall security but actual police, stood by the security office door. The woman noticed too. "Looks like somebody already made a call," she remarked. Chen felt the first real twinge of uncertainty. Something wasn't adding up. He pushed open the door to the security office, still gripping the woman's arm. Inside, he froze. Sitting at the desk was Police Captain Rivera, his direct supervisor, with an expression that made Chen's stomach drop. "Officer Chen," Rivera said, rising from his seat. "Remove those handcuffs. Immediately." Chen blinked in confusion. "Sir, I was just bringing in a shoplifter. I caught her." "I said remove the handcuffs," Rivera repeated, his voice deadly calm. "Now." Fumbling with the keys, Chen unlocked the handcuffs. The woman rubbed her wrists, wincing slightly as circulation returned. "Thank you, Captain," she said with a nod to Rivera. Chen looked between them, utterly confused. "You two know each other?" Captain Rivera's face was stone. "Officer Chen, allow me to introduce Lieutenant Alicia Patel, SWAT Team Commander from South Division." The floor seemed to drop from beneath Chen's feet. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Lieutenant Patel was at the mall today purchasing specialized communication equipment for an upcoming tactical training exercise, Rivera continued, each word falling like a hammer. "With full departmental authorization and funding." The woman, Lieutenant Patel reached into her pocket and pulled out a leather wallet, flipping it open to reveal a gold badge and police ID. "I tried to tell you," she said simply. Chen's face burned with humiliation as the reality of his mistake crashed down on him. I didn't. You didn't identify yourself," he stammered. "You never gave me the chance," Lieutenant Patel replied. "You were too busy making assumptions." The security footage from Tech World played on a monitor in the corner of the room, clearly showing Patel at the checkout counter, paying for the headphones before placing them in her bag, the very same headphones Chen had accused her of stealing. "Officer." "Chen, wait outside," Captain Rivera ordered. "I'll deal with you momentarily." Chen stepped into the hallway, his legs unsteady. The crowd that had followed them had grown, and several phones were still recording. News traveled fast in a mall. Someone must have recognized Lieutenant Patel, or maybe word had spread that a cop was about to be in serious trouble. Through the glass panel in the door, Chen could see Captain Rivera speaking with Lieutenant Patel. She was calm, professional, showing none of the anger he would have expected. Somehow that made it worse. One of the mall security guards approached him. "The videos are already online," he said quietly. "It's spreading fast." Chen's phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a text from his wife. "What did you do? It's all over." "Facebook." He leaned against the wall, suddenly feeling the weight of his 12 years on the force crumbling around him. In a single afternoon, with one terrible misjudgment, he had likely destroyed his career. The security office door opened, and Captain Rivera emerged. "My car. Now," was all he said. As Chen followed his captain toward the exit, he passed Lieutenant Patel speaking with the mall manager, likely smoothing things over. She paused mid-sentence, her eyes meeting Chen's. There was no triumph in her gaze, no satisfaction at his downfall, only a steady, assessing look that seemed to see right through him. Chen looked away first, unable to bear the weight of his own shame as he walked out under the unforgiving glare of dozens of recording phones. The ride back to the police station was the longest 15 minutes of Officer Chen's life. Captain Rivera drove in stony silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Chen stared out the window, watching the familiar streets blur past. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. The videos were spreading like wildfire. "Do you understand what you've done?" Rivera finally asked, as they pulled into the station parking lot. "I made a mistake, sir," Chen replied, his voice small. Rivera cut the engine and turned to face him. "A mistake? You publicly handcuffed and humiliated a decorated lieutenant, a SWAT team leader, based on nothing but your own assumptions." Chen had no response. There was nothing he could say that would make this better. Inside the station, the usual chatter died as they walked through. Word had clearly spread. Officers who had been Chen's friends for years suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. No one would meet his eyes. "My office," Rivera said, pointing to the glass-walled room at the end of the hall. Chen sank into the chair across from Rivera's desk, feeling like he was back in school, called to the principal's office. "Explain to me," Rivera said, leaning forward, "why you didn't verify with store staff before making that arrest." Chen searched for an answer that wouldn't sound as bad as the truth. There wasn't one. I was sure she was stealing." "Based on what evidence?" "She put merchandise in her bag. After paying for it," Rivera corrected, "which the security footage clearly shows and which she tried to tell you." Chen stared at his hands. "Yes, sir." "In 12 years on the force, you've never learned to verify before acting?" Rivera's voice rose slightly. "To check facts before putting handcuffs on someone?" Before Chen could answer, there was a knock at the door. Lieutenant Patel stood there, still in her navy jacket, now with a visitor's badge clipped to her collar. "May I come in?" she asked. Rivera nodded, gesturing to the empty chair beside Chen. Patel sat down, her posture perfect, hands folded in her lap. Up close, Chen could see the small pin on her jacket collar, a SWAT team insignia. How had he missed that? "Lieutenant, I want to personally apologize for this incident," Rivera began. Patel held up a hand. Captain, I'd like to speak with Officer Chen directly if that's all right. Rivera nodded and leaned back, giving her the floor. Patel turned to Chen. Before today, have you ever met me? Chen shook his head. No, ma'am. So you didn't recognize me as a police officer? No, ma'am. Did I fit what you expected a shoplifter to look like? Chen felt his face grow hot. I don't know what you mean. I think you do, Patel said calmly. I've been an officer for 15 years. I've led the SWAT team for 5. I've received 2 medals of valor. She paused. And yet, within 30 seconds of seeing me, you decided I was a criminal. Lieutenant, let me finish, she said. I'm not here to yell at you or demand your badge. I want to understand what happened today because it's not just about me. It's about every person who looks like me who walks into that mall. Captain Rivera opened a folder on his desk. Your arrest record, Chen. In the past 3 years, 72% of your arrests at Pine Ridge Mall were people of color, in a neighborhood that's 80% white. Chen felt like he'd been slapped. That's not... You don't... What? Patel asked. You don't see color, you don't profile people? I follow my instincts, Chen said weakly. And your instincts told you I was stealing despite evidence to the contrary, Patel replied. That's the problem we need to address. The door opened again, and a man in a suit entered carrying a tablet. Sorry to interrupt, but you all need to see this. He placed the tablet on Rivera's desk and pressed play on a video. It was Chen arresting Patel, filmed from an angle he hadn't noticed. The footage was crystal clear, capturing everything. His dismissive attitude, cutting her off, mid-sentence ignoring her requests to contact a supervisor. Worst of all, it showed the moment when she had tried to show him her receipt, and he had jerked her hand away. This video has over 50,000 views already, the man said. It's on every major news site. The department's phone lines are jammed with calls. Chen felt sick. Can I make a statement? Apologize publicly? It's too late for that, Rivera said. The damage is done. Not necessarily, Patel said thoughtfully. All 3 men looked at her in surprise. Lieutenant? Rivera asked. This is a teaching moment, she said. Not just for Officer Chen, but for the entire department. She turned to Chen. You made a terrible mistake today because of unchecked biases. The question now is, what are you going to do about it? Chen blinked, confused. I don't understand. Are you going to fight this? Patel asked. Claim you were justified, or are you going to acknowledge what happened and work to change? For the first time since this nightmare began, Chen felt a tiny glimmer of hope. I want to change, he said quietly. I never thought I was biased, Patel finished for him. None of us like to think we are, but our actions speak louder than our self-image. She stood up and addressed Rivera. Captain, I'm not interested in ending this man's career. What I want is real change, in him and in the department. Mandatory bias training, community engagement programs, more diverse hiring practices. Rivera nodded slowly. What exactly are you proposing? A task force, Patel said, to implement these changes, and I think Officer Chen should be part of it. Chen's head snapped up. Me? Why would you want me involved? Patel's eyes were direct and challenging. Because you have first-hand experience with the problem. And because if you can change, maybe others can too. The man in the suit shook his head. The press will crucify us if we don't take stronger action. Then let me handle the press, Patel said with surprising calm. This doesn't have to be just another scandal. It can be the beginning of real reform. Rivera studied her for a long moment. You're serious about this? Completely, she replied. Sometimes the people who made the mistake are exactly the ones who need to help fix the system. Chen couldn't believe what he was hearing. She was offering him a chance at redemption when she had every right to demand his badge. Why? He asked simply. Patel's expression softened slightly. Because punishing you doesn't solve the broader problem. And because I believe people can change when they're finally forced to see the truth about themselves. She extended her hand. To him. So, Officer Chen, are you ready to see the truth? 3 days after the incident at Pine Ridge Mall, Officer Chen sat in his living room staring at the TV. His face was all over the news again. The headlines were brutal. Racial profiling at Pine Ridge Mall. Officer arrests SWAT leader, claims. She fit the profile. Police department under fire for mall arrest. Chen's phone rang. It was his mother. Are you eating? She asked, skipping hello. Your father and I are worried. I'm fine, Mom, he lied, glancing at the untouched sandwich on the coffee table. The neighbors keep asking about you, she continued. I don't know what to tell them. Chen sighed. Tell them I messed up. Tell them I'm trying to make it right. After they hung up, Chen turned off the TV and picked up the thick folder Captain Rivera had given him. Inside was a collection of studies on implicit bias in policing, data on departmental arrest rates broken down by race, and community feedback from town halls held in minority neighborhoods. He'd read it all twice already, highlighting sections that hit too close to home, making notes in the margins. When he'd started on the force 12 years ago, things had seemed so clear, good guys and bad guys, black and white. Now everything was gray, and he wasn't sure where he stood anymore. His phone buzzed with a text from Rivera. Task Force. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Be prepared. Meanwhile, across town in a much different neighborhood, Lieutenant Patel sat on her back porch, nursing a cup of tea. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing since the video went viral. Calls from news stations, civil rights attorneys, old colleagues, and friends checking on her. Her neighbor, Mrs. Hassan, leaned over the fence. I saw you on the news, she said, shaking her head. My son has been stopped 3 times this year. Never arrested, but always stopped. Patel nodded. That's exactly why I'm pushing for change instead of punishment. You think it will work? One officer gets embarrassed and suddenly the whole system changes? Mrs. Hassan sounded skeptical. No, Patel admitted. But it's a crack in the wall, and sometimes that's how real change begins. Later that evening, Patel received an unexpected visitor. Captain Rivera stood on her doorstep, looking exhausted. Sorry to bother you at home, he said. But I needed to speak with you away from the station. Over coffee at her kitchen table, Rivera laid out the political reality. The mayor wants Chen fired. The chief is on the fence. Half the force thinks you're a hero and the other half thinks you're causing trouble. And what do you think? Patel asked. Rivera ran a hand over his face. I think you're right. But I also think you're asking for a miracle. Changing the culture of an entire department isn't easy. I never said it would be easy, Patel replied. Just necessary. The next morning, the task force gathered in a conference room at headquarters. Chen arrived early, dressed in his civilian clothes as instructed. He'd been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the internal investigation. One by one, the others filed in. 3 other officers, a community liaison, a city council member, a representative from the police union, and finally, Lieutenant Patel herself. She wore her full uniform today, the bars on her shoulders glinting under the fluorescent lights. Thank you all for coming, she began, standing at the head of the table. Before we get started, I want to make one thing clear. This task force isn't about assigning blame or punishing past mistakes. It's about making real changes to prevent future incidents. She gestured to Chen. Officer Chen has agreed to be part of this process, which took courage. I expect everyone here to treat him with the same respect you'd show any other member of this task force. Chen felt a wave of gratitude, even as some of the others looked at him with undisguised skepticism. The community liaison, a woman named Dr. Park, spoke up. With all due respect, Lieutenant, many in the community see Officer Chen as part of the problem, not the solution. Sometimes the best solutions come from people who have been part of the problem, Patel replied evenly. Officer Chen has first-hand experience with how biases can affect policing decisions. That perspective is valuable. The task force meeting lasted for hours. They reviewed data, shared personal experiences, and debated potential policy changes. Chen mostly listened, taking notes, occasionally offering insights from his years patrolling the mall. The problem is deeper than individual officers, the council member said at one point. It's about resource allocation, training, community, relationships, and accountability, Chen added quietly. All eyes turned to him in surprise. There has to be real consequences when we get it wrong, not just damage control. After the meeting, as everyone was gathering their things, Dr. Park approached Chen. You surprised me today, she said. I expected excuses. Chen shook his head. I'm all out of those. 2 weeks later, Chen found himself standing before a community forum in the Pine Ridge Community Center. The room was packed with local residents, many from minority communities who shopped at the mall where he had patrolled. His mouth went dry as Lieutenant Patel introduced him. There was no applause, just wary silence and a few whispers. My name is Officer Ray Chen, he began, his voice shaking slightly. 3 weeks ago, I wrongfully arrested Lieutenant Patel at Pine Ridge Mall. I didn't verify facts, I didn't follow proper procedure, and I let my own biases cloud my judgment. The room was so quiet he could hear the air conditioning humming. Might die. Not here to ask for forgiveness, he continued. I'm here because what happened that day wasn't an isolated incident. It's part of a pattern that affects real people in this community every day, and it needs to stop. He outlined the task force's preliminary findings and their proposed changes: enhanced training programs, community oversight committees, revised arrest procedures, and regular audits of officer interactions. These changes won't happen overnight, he concluded, and they won't mean anything if officers like me don't change too. I'm committed to doing that work, not just for my sake, but for all of yours. When he finished, there was no standing ovation, no dramatic reconciliation, just thoughtful nods, a few skeptical looks, and one older gentleman in the back who raised his hand and said, It's a start. Later, as they left the community center, Lieutenant Patel touched Chen's arm. That couldn't have been easy, she said. Hardest thing I've ever done, he admitted. It was also the right thing, she replied. And sometimes that's what matters most. 6 months passed. The leaves changed, fell, and gave way to winter snow before melting again into spring. Inside the Pine Ridge Police Academy gymnasium, rows of folding chairs faced a small stage. Family members chatted excitedly as they waited for the ceremony to begin. At the back of the room, Officer Ray Chen straightened his tie. He wasn't in uniform today. That privilege had been suspended during his probationary period, but his civilian clothes were pressed and neat. Nervous? Asked Dr. Park, now a regular presence at the station as the community liaison for the new oversight committee. A little, Chen admitted. I didn't think I'd be part of this. That was the point, she said with a small smile. Real change means staying in the room, not being pushed out of it. The doors opened, and Captain Rivera entered, followed by the Chief of Police and several city officials. Last came Lieutenant Patel, except she wasn't a lieutenant anymore. The new insignia on her shoulders marked her as Captain Patel, recently promoted to head the department's newly formed Community Engagement Division. The audience rose as the Police Academy graduation ceremony began. 24 new officers would join the force today, the first class to complete the revamped training program that Patel and Chen had helped design. As the graduates filed in, Chen noted something that would have seemed unremarkable just months ago but now felt significant. The class was noticeably diverse, with more women and people of color than any previous academy class. The police chief approached the podium. Today marks not just the graduation of these fine officers, but a new chapter for our department, he began. The past 6 months have brought challenges, but also opportunities for growth and change. Chen thought about those 6 months. The long task force meetings, the community forums, some heated, some heartbreaking, the complete overhaul of training procedures, and his own journey through intensive bias awareness programs. He'd almost quit twice. Once when fellow officers stopped talking when he entered the break room, and again when he'd visited his parents and his father had asked, "Why are you putting yourself through this? Just find another job." But each time he'd remembered Patel's words from that first day in Rivera's office. Sometimes the people who made the mistake are exactly the ones who need to help fix the system. The chief continued his speech, then introduced Captain Patel as the keynote speaker. She approached the podium to warm applause. "When I joined the force 15 years ago," she began, "I was told to keep my head down and prove myself through my work. And I did that. But keeping your head down means you can't see the path ahead, and we all need to be looking forward now." She spoke about accountability, community trust, and the everyday choices that defined good policing. Then she surprised everyone. "I'd like to invite Officer Ray Chen to join me." A murmur went through the crowd as Chen made his way to the stage. Some knew him only as that officer from the mall video. Others had worked alongside him during the reform process. "Officer Chen could have left the department after what happened last fall," Patel said. "Many expected him to. Some wanted him to." She paused. Instead, he chose to stay and do the harder work of facing his mistakes and helping create change. Chen took his place beside her, uncomfortable with the attention but understanding its purpose. This wasn't about him personally. It was about showing that transformation was possible. "Officer Chen will be returning to full duty next week," Patel announced. "With a new assignment. He'll be working with our community youth programs and serving as a training officer for our new graduates, sharing the lessons he's learned in a very tangible way." After the ceremony, as people mingled and took photos, Chen found himself face to face with a familiar figure, the store manager from Tech World, where everything had started 6 months ago. "I heard you were part of the changes around here," the manager said, extending his hand. "That's good. We've noticed a difference in how officers interact with customers at the mall." Before Chen could respond, he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find a young man in a crisp new police uniform, one of the graduates. "Officer Chen? I'm Officer Pham. They said you'll be one of our training officers." "That's right," Chen replied. "I saw the video," Pham said bluntly. "The mall incident," Chen nodded, bracing himself. "That's actually why I requested to train with you," Pham continued. "Anyone can teach procedure. I wanted to learn from someone who understands what happens when we get it wrong, and how to make it right." Later that evening, after most people had left, Chen found himself alone with Captain Patel in the academy hallway. "Congratulations on the promotion," he said. "Well deserved." "Thank you," she replied. "How are you feeling about returning to full duty?" "Honestly? Terrified," Chen admitted. "What if I mess up again?" Patel considered this. "You probably will," she said finally. "We all do. The difference is now you'll recognize it faster, and you'll have better tools to correct course." She handed him a small box. Inside was a new nameplate for his uniform. "The department changed while you were on probation," she explained. "New badges, new nameplates. But I thought you might appreciate the symbolism." Chen ran his finger over the engraved letters. "Same name, new beginning." "I have something for you too," he said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "It's probably overdue." Patel opened it to find a handwritten letter. "A formal apology?" "Not just for what happened that day," Chen said, "but for all the times I didn't see my own biases, for all the people I might have treated unfairly because they looked like you." Patel nodded, tucking the letter away. "This is just the beginning, you know. Real change takes years, not months." "I know," Chen said. "But for the first time, I think we're on the right path." As they walked toward the exit, they passed the wall of photos showing academy graduating classes through the years. The newest photo would go up soon, the most diverse class in the department's history. "We're not going to fix everything," Patel said, following his gaze to the photos. "No," Chen agreed, "but we're going to try, and that counts for something." Outside, the spring evening was warm and full of promise. Chen looked up at the stars, thinking about second chances and the long road ahead. 6 months ago, a terrible mistake had changed his life. Today he was helping to change the system, not because he was special or heroic, but because sometimes the right person to help fix a broken system is the one who has seen firsthand how it breaks.